I'm April Cheek Messier, President of the National D-Day Memorial, and I bring you greetings on this Veterans Day. Veterans Day is always one of the most important commemorations at the memorial, one we have marked with gatherings since before the memorial even opened to the public. In a normal year, we would host a large gathering today, with hundreds of veterans in attendance from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, the Gulf War, the War on Terror, and other conflicts, as well as from peacetime service. This year, with a global pandemic, we cannot gather in large numbers. Still, we feel an eternal obligation and sacred trust to give to veterans everywhere a message, simple and profound. Thank you. It has been my great pleasure to know so many veterans of the Second World War through the National D-Day Memorial. Sadly, I've had to say farewell to too many in recent years as the passage of time thins their ranks. On Veterans Day, I can see their faces and hear their voices, and their example still inspires me, as it does so many others. I think of Evelyn Kowalczyk, an amazing woman who served as a flight nurse in the European theater and who volunteered here into her later years. I think of Ray Nance, a Bedford boy, soldier, and leader who witnessed history and the devastating loss of D-Day. I remember Bobby Johnson, an airman in the war, and a generous supporter who believed in educating the next generation. Or Jerry Yellen, who flew the final combat mission of World War II and spent the rest of his life educating others on the importance of peace. Only a few weeks ago, I sat in the funeral service of Hayden Furrow, who survived the Battle of the Hurtgen Forest and whose faith and patriotism inspired all who knew him. Each of these American heroes had valuable lessons to impart, and we miss them deeply. Today, many of our volunteers are veterans of more recent service, as are many of the visitors we welcome on a daily basis. I relish the opportunities I get to say hello, chat for a few minutes, and hear their stories. And as always, I am left with gratitude. Gratitude for men and women who sacrifice so much so that my children can grow up in a free nation. Today, it is our privilege to present this virtual commemoration as our way of expressing our gratitude. Instead of featuring a single keynote speaker, as we often do on Veterans Day, we have invited a few of our friends and supporters to record simple messages of thanks. Their messages echo in our hearts in honoring the best of Americans, our veterans. As you know, in this age of quarantines and lockdowns, there are many veterans, especially those who are older, who feel particularly isolated right now. This is their day, but many will spend it away from family or friends, socially distanced from loved ones. If you know a veteran who is isolated this Veterans Day, please take a moment to send him or her a message. A card or a simple phone call to say thank you will brighten their day and in small measure express the gratitude we all owe these heroes. Today we give thanks to the men and women of America's armed forces. We thank them for the freedom we enjoy because of their willingness to serve. And now, enjoy our virtual presentation. Once again, to all veterans of our armed forces, I want to say from the bottom of my heart, on behalf of our board, staff, and volunteers, thank you for your service.
Hello, I'm General John Hyten, Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. It is my honor to be here with you today as we remember our nation's veterans. Thank you to the National D-Day Memorial Foundation for hosting this event today. Veterans Day, our nation pauses to honor all the men and women who have served our country in uniform, every generation, every service, every walk of life. We honor those who fought for our freedom and through their service and sacrifice guaranteed our liberty and way of life. For over 244 years of independence, these patriots have stood watch over America. From Bunker Hill to Utah Beach, from Midway to Mosul, from Inchon to Quezon, their vigilance and determination to uphold our Constitution and the beliefs on which our nation was forged have made us the beneficiaries of the promise of our founders' blessings. And America has been blessed, yet this blessing, earned as it may be, comes at great price from those who have and continue to serve. Throughout our history, our veterans and their families have made immeasurable sacrifices. The story of Americans' veterans is varied. Ordinary men and women who step forward to guarantee the independence, our independence with their service and to help others shed the yoke of oppression and tyranny. They have answered their nation's call. In all of the conflicts in which we have engaged, and during all the years of restless peace between conflicts, we rightfully take a moment to celebrate our veterans' patriotism, service, and sacrifice, and reaffirm our collective commitment as a nation to keep faith with those who have served. Those who have answered the call deserve our rightful recognition of their sacrifices on our behalf, many of whom carry the marks of war inside and out. Visible or not, all veterans have lived some form of deprivation to serve their country. Whether it's lost time with loved ones or bearing the physical and mental scars of their time in service, scars that we might not be able to see. This is why it's so important to thank our veterans, to reach out and talk to them every day, not just today, and thank their families too who sacrifice so much. So to our veterans, we are in debt to you. We see you, we hear you, and we thank you. Know that we are here for you through whatever challenges arise in life. You have given much for our safety, our stability, and our way of life. To paraphrase the unforgettable words of our national anthem, we truly remain the land of the free because we're also the home of the brave. These words remain the bedrock of what we as a nation aspire to be. Our servicemen and women face trials and tribulations on a daily basis that put them in harm's way on our collective behalf. So on Veterans Day, we pause to remember and declare gratitude. To all our veterans and their families, on behalf of my family, I want to thank you for your service. Not just for your time in uniform, but also for the leadership you're providing our communities every day. You continue to make a difference across this nation, and I couldn't be more proud. God bless you and your families, and God bless the United States of America.
It's with reverence and humility that I take a moment to recognize the importance of November 11th, Veterans Day. Veterans Day honors all of those who serve or have served our wonderful nation in war or peace, including those who with their service gave their lives. November 11th is an important day to honor veterans, not just in the United States, but also in many other places around the world. Because it marks the anniversary of the end of the First Great World War, in which major hostilities ended at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918, more than a century ago. So today we join with nations across the world to sincerely thank our veterans for their service to our nation, for their many personal sacrifices, and for the sacrifices of their families who supported them every step of the way. Thank you all.
Each one of us know some veteran, whether it's, someone in your family, whether it's an active duty, or maybe even a future recruit. We all know somebody that has served in the military. Now, when we are having those bad days of food dripping down us, or, you ran out of coffee, think about the ones who are serving and who are stationed throughout the world that are sleeping, not even in a bed, that are sleeping in a war zone. Now, that's not the purpose of this, right? What I want to talk to you though is about that idea that no matter what we are struggling with in life, that we are able to adapt, we are able to overcome. But one of the main things is this idea that no matter what we are facing in life, that we have to continue to support, pray, and love. Give that love and that support as much as we can to those men and women who are stationed throughout, who are still fighting for us. Those veterans who are still fighting for their lives because they are dealing with, PTSD or, the thought of suicide, or even those ones who are still struggling to adapt in life. Your amputees, maybe the ones that were severely injured, or like myself, where I have disabilities due to nerve damage. It's things that maybe you aren't being able to recognize or be able to see with your own eyes, but they are there. So again, I say to you, no matter what you are facing in life, make sure that you are supporting, that you are loving these veterans, that you are giving it your all each and every day to them, because you may not think much about it, but a simple thank you, a shaking of the hand, maybe not right now because of COVID, but give them a little elbow, thank them for their service. Even if it's right? You can mumble it or whisper it or however you want to give it out. Sign it, doesn't matter. But make sure that our veterans are loved and supported.
I'd like to wish everyone a happy Veterans Day to one and all, to so many millions of American veterans who have served through many different epochs. And on this Veteran Day in particular, there's one soldier who is foremost in my mind, Captain Ben Solomon, who was actually a dentist. He was a graduate of the USC School of Dentistry. And the draft snagged him, the peacetime draft in 1940. He had thought about trying to join the Army and get a commission as a dentist before that, but the Army didn't have that much interest in him at that stage. So he was drafted as a private soldier, and he found that he just loved being in the infantry. So Ben Solomon was an infantry soldier for a couple of years, including, after Pearl Harbor when the war began, and had found that he just had this incredible talent for soldiering. He could field strip a rifle blindfolded faster than most soldiers could do it looking at a weapon. He was seemingly tireless on hikes. He understood how machine guns operated so perfectly. He had become a machine gun section sergeant in an infantry unit that was stationed on an island called Canton, in a remote part of the Pacific. And then finally the Army decides, hey, we need his dentistry skills, and so they more or less forced him to take on a commission as a dentist, and he joined the 27th Infantry Division in Hawaii. Well, he still had a kind of infantryman soul, and so he would see patients in the morning, and then later in the day he would go and train with the rifle companies. So this was on the eve of what was called the invasion of Saipan, which was a major battle in the summer of 1944 in the Marianas in the Central Pacific, and the purpose of it was to capture air bases from which the Americans could then bomb the Japanese home island. So it was a particularly violent and protracted battle, and during the battle, the battalion surgeon of 2nd Battalion, 105th Infantry Regiment, of which Ben Solomon was a part, got wounded, and so he volunteered to fill in for him. Even though he wasn't a physician, he was a dentist, and thus he had some medical knowledge. So he kind of finds another calling when he's doing this. He loves seeing patients, and then he had kind of decided he was going to go to medical school after the war and become a surgeon and all this. So all this is happening in the context of a kind of Japanese last gasp offensive on the evening of July 6th and 7th, 1944. A massive banzai assault in a last attempt to overwhelm the American lines. And it just so happened that the worst of the attack hit right at the crux of Ben Solomon's unit, the 2nd Battalion, 105th Infantry. So he's in an aid station tent about 50 to 70 yards behind the front lines, and he's seeing all these patients, getting overwhelmed by them practically, when all of a sudden Japanese soldiers burst into the tent and begin to try and stab the wounded to death. Solomon picked up a rifle, shot one of them. He bayoneted another attacking Japanese soldier, beat another one to death, and it was a terrible hand-to-hand combat situation. And then he left the tent, kind of taking stock what was going on, and of course the Japanese had overrun the lines, and it was just a chaotic situation. So he comes back to the tent, and he tells his orderlies, his assistants, hey, you deal with the wounded as best you can and get them out of here. I'm going to go and try and hold the Japanese off. So he took a 30 caliber machine gun and just, blazed away as best he could, moved to several different positions in the course of the fighting, and unfortunately was overwhelmed by the Japanese and killed by them sometime in the course of the night. Later on, when American soldiers got to his body, they found something in order of about 60 to 70 Japanese bodies around him. So Ben Solomon was immediately at that point put in for a posthumous Medal of Honor. But his commander, General George Greiner, mistakenly thought that Ben had inadvertently violated the Geneva Convention as a medical person to take up arms, when in fact the Geneva Convention had said that you could take up arms in protection of yourself and the wounded. Though Greiner really sympathized with the incredible valor of Ben Solomon and wanted to get the Medal of Honor, he thought, well, we can't do it if he violated the rules. So this led to a kind of decades of injustice in which he hadn't been recognized properly, and it wasn't until 3 different initiatives to get him the Medal of Honor had played out, the last one in 2001 and 2002, when he had finally received the Medal of Honor. By that time, he had no next of kin to receive it for him. He was an only child. His mother had already died by the time this was playing out. His father had died in 1970, and so the USC School of Dentistry accepted on his behalf, and also the Army Corps of Dentistry, particularly Major General Patrick Scully, who headed up that part of the Army. So Ben Solomon, to this day, is the only dentist in the Army's history to be awarded the Medal of Honor. And he's a person, I think, when you sort of look back on his life, you see this sort of remarkable resilience, you see an intelligence, a sensitivity there, and I think we might all agree, an incredible valor that is worth reflecting on, on this Veterans Day. I would like to send out my very best to certainly anybody who knew Ben Solomon, anybody who has read his story, anybody who served in the Battle of Saipan, but also to all American veterans, no matter the era, from Revolutionary era to the present, but particularly World War II through now. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is George Patton Waters, a U.S. Navy veteran and the grandson of the famed World War II General George S. Patton. And it is my privilege on this Veterans Day to say thank you to all who have served. Veterans Day gives us, the citizens of the nation, an opportunity to acknowledge and celebrate the service of all veterans, living as well as those who have passed on. Seizing that opportunity, I ask you to be particularly mindful of the members of the nation's armed forces who are now on active duty, even as we honor those who in the earlier time also served in uniform. Let's be mindful, too, of the valor, the fidelity, the sacrifice, and the service demands of their families. Our nation's debt to them is also profound. To the veterans who participated in D-Day, thank you. To the veterans whose service took place at another point and another time, thank you. And to those still in uniform, in whatever service and wherever you are, thank you. This is your day, and I salute you. I wish we could all be together, but we can't. In the past, we've met at the memorial, but this is not possible this year. However, the National D-Day Memorial stands as a visible reminder of the need and the obligation each of us has to the here and now to say thank you throughout the year to those who serve. May God bless all of you for all your service, and may today be a great day. Thank you.
The roots of Veterans Day go back to the end of the war to end all wars. On November 11th, 1918, at 11 o'clock in the morning, the guns fell silent in World War I, and people across America took the opportunity to reflect on the blessings of peace, to remember those who had served, and to mourn those who would not come home again. The next year, on the first anniversary of what was then called Armistice Day, President Woodrow Wilson called the nation to remembrance of the significance of 11th November. To us in America, he proclaimed, the reflections of Armistice Day will be filled with solemn pride because of the opportunity it has given America to show her sympathy with peace and justice in the councils of the nations. The day was commemorated with parades along many American main streets and patriotic speeches reminding citizens of the service of those who wore the uniform. In ensuing years, many states began to adopt November 11th as official state holidays. But Armistice Day was not officially acknowledged by the federal government until 1926. That year, a congressional resolution noted that, quote, "It is fitting that the recurring anniversary of this date should be commemorated with thanksgiving and prayer and exercises designed to perpetuate peace through goodwill and mutual understanding," end quote. This was, however, a mere recognition of the significance of November 11th. Not until 1938, as the nation prepared for the 20th anniversary of Armistice Day, did the day become an official national holiday. Soon after that, the American people discovered that the war to end all wars did not, in fact, fulfill that claim. War clouds again engulfed Europe, and by the end of 1941, the United States was again at war. After that global conflict ended, American boys were sent to fight and die in Korea. By 1954, it was obvious that while honoring the veterans of the First World War was a worthwhile and necessary task, a new generation of veterans deserved recognition as well. And so President Eisenhower, a man who knew better than most what service in the military meant, officially changed the name of Armistice Day to Veterans Day, allowing the nation to recognize all veterans of the U.S. Armed Forces, regardless of when, where, or under what circumstances they had served. In the 1970s, no small argument erupted over Veterans Day. The federal government moved the observance of several national holidays, including Veterans Day, to Mondays, regardless of the date. The result was confusion and dissatisfaction. Many states continued to recognize November 11th, regardless of the day of the week on which it fell. Many of the surviving World War I veterans were unhappy that the day had been divorced from the historical significance of the end of the Great War. Accordingly, in 1975, President Ford returned the national observance of Veterans Day to the fixed date of November 11th, where it has remained ever since. Today, the World War I generation has passed into history. The majority of World War II and Korean War veterans have also now departed. But the day remains as an annual reminder of those who had served, of their patriotism and love of country, of their willingness to sacrifice and guard our freedoms. Every November 11th, we have the opportunity and the sacred duty to reflect on these brave men and women, the best of Americans. To veterans everywhere, the National D-Day Memorial is honored to say to each of you, thank you for your service.
I saw a flag pass by one day. It fluttered in a breeze. A young Marine saluted it, and then he stood at ease. I looked at him in uniform, so young, so tall, so proud. With hair cut square and eyes alert, he'd stand out in any crowd. I wondered how many times a man like him had fallen through the years. How many died on foreign soil, how many mothers' tears. How many pilots' planes shot down, how many died at sea. How many foxholes were soldiers' graves. No, freedom is not free. I heard the sound of taps one night when everything was still. I listened to the bugler play and felt a sudden chill. I wondered how many times the taps had meant amen when a flag had draped the coffin of a brother or a friend. I thought about all the children, the mothers and the wives, the fathers, sons, and husbands with interrupted lives. I thought about all the graveyards at the bottom of the sea, the unmarked graves in Arlington. No, freedom is not free.
We grew up in Montvale, and the time we lived on a farm, there was 6 of us boys, and we all served except one. I was in the Navy Air Force. Here was in the Army Air, and then Garland, he was on the Ticonderoga, and Bobby was National Guards here in Bedford. I used to hear my mother pray, "Lord, bring them home, don't let them get hurt." Every one of us got home without much damage. I know there's a lot of people that see my hat, and every once in a while somebody will stop me and say, "Thank you for your service." I want to know where I served and what I did. And people have really honored us for our service and appreciated it. All of us were very close. They were very wonderful guys. So we all loved one another and looked out for one another very closely. I felt obligated that I should do something for my brothers. I began to come down here, and I knew that they were doing the bricks, and I thought it would be honorable to do that for my brothers. I thought that there should be memory somewhere for what they did. They served our country honorably and without regret, and they had no worry about giving their life for our country. I think God helped us to have a wonderful place here to honor all of them. And I think that most of the United States will come here to look at it sometime or another in their lifetime. And when they do, of course, they should recognize that's why we have a free country. We're not looking for honor and glory, but we do like to be recognized that we were veterans and that we did serve. It does make me feel good, and I think it does to anyone.